Welcome to Scrum Down on Zuku Sport, the place that we give you all news, views, and reviews on matters rugby. I'm your host, Larry Asego, and I'm joined by Jotham Makanga and Joni. I'll say this because he's been itching for me to say this. Former St. Mary's Yala professional player. Apparently, if you played for St. Mary's, you are considered a professional. Now, the reason why I'm actually bringing out the issue of St. Mary's Yala is because today we're going to be focusing on schools rugby. Okay, we've had Damu Pevu, we've had the Prescott Cup, and our focus today is the Prescott Cup. We had some big games last week, and the schools went out, they were at it, and I mean, Jotham, over the weekend, you're actually saying some of these teams that need to improve on their performance a bit.
Performance, basic skills, I think, tackling, going down the scrum, but I think more on that later on. But I think my biggest shocker was, my first time literally watching high school game. These boys are small, but they have heart.
Jotham, you know you've always been big ever from birth.
I was born this big. I was born with a...
Anyway, in case you missed the action, our reporter Damima, of course, managed to cut all the games, and this is the action she has for you.
The Prescott Cup has traditionally been the feeder tournament for clubs where players hone their skills while still in school. The rivalries were fierce, with certain matches a must-watch. But a new order has emerged, with former powerhouses relegated from the competition and new schools emerging to take center stage. Over the years, the Prescott Cup has been the preserve of a chosen few. Between 1994 and 2013, for example, only 5 schools have won the cup. They include St. Mary's, who have won it a record 8 times, so when regular contenders like Nairobi School get relegated to the lower Damu Pevu competition, then questions are raised.
It has actually made the tournament competitive, being that people have actually realized that Prescott is very serious, and if you don't do well, you'll actually be relegated. So I think it has actually made guys take it seriously.
Patch Machine, as Nairobi School are popularly known, were always among the favourites, and in their absence, other schools that were not so popular in rugby have been given a chance to rise to the occasion. A third force has emerged, with the likes of Upper Hill School and Ofafa Jericho making the quarterfinals of this competition. It is a positive indicator of the growth of the game, especially in eastern Nairobi, a region previously perceived to be predominantly football-oriented. Too many fixture shifts in dates and times tend to affect the tournament. Another suggestion that has received wide support from the participants is changing the times of the matches. Traditionally, Prescott has been played on Wednesday evenings. A change of time to the weekend, a Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, might just add a new dimension to the playing.
I think it would encourage the support, the fans to actually come, all boys coming to the games, because having the games on the weekdays in the evening, you have to deal with traffic, and it's not also very easy for the schools. Being an academic institution first,
But one thing is for sure, as an age group development tournament, sponsorship is key. This will ensure that the tournament runs without a break and the schools get to benefit from the windfall that comes with the sponsorship, such as equipment and much needed facilitation.
So that is the action from the Prescott Cup. Now, we had big games. First up, we have to give credit to Ofafa Jericho.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody was shocked with the absence of Patch and the presence of Ofafa Jericho in the Prescott Cup. Johnny?
Having played the western region of the country for my high school years, I'm not shocked. I mean, currently in the national team, you have a big number of players coming from the western side. Talking about Nyanza and Western Kenya.
Yes.
You have both in the 15s and in the 7s. Now, I dare say this. Had Prescott involved a whole national outlook, I think you'd be seeing more of champions coming from that side. Now, since it was a Nairobi affair and only used to involve a very small select number of schools,
teams, yes.
I think also that should be a factor, because you have some school like Patch. It's unfortunate they're not in the top competition.
Unfortunate for you, Jotham is smiling there. Just to bring in Jotham right now, I know you're itching to say something about Patch Machine.
Well, I think speaking with Johnny, off camera before the show started, everything else, he gave me a brief run through the history of the entire Prescott Cup. RVA pretty dominant, and of course St. Mary's. But I think it's a good outlook for the tournament. It's showing that things are changing. I mean, Ofafa, coming from the history known for soccer,
Yes.
football, and now transitioning to rugby, that shows also that, number one, the sport of rugby is expanding, which is something we as rugby fans would love to see. And of course, the transition from soccer to rugby is not something strange. Mike Agevi, I think the younger brother
Yes,
to
he
Humphrey
did that as
Kayange
well.
and Collins and Jerry also transitioned very well to rugby, and now has made I think both national teams, 15s and 7s. So I think it's a good projection. It's really good showing that rugby in fact is growing, and other schools are taking it seriously. And I know we've been talking about the whole balancing between sports and academic, and it's just very promising.
True, and that's to get you some of the scores from last week. So the teams that are making it to the semi-finals, we have Strathmore, they're in it. We have Lenana, Laser Hill, and of course the defending champions Alliance. Johnny, are you surprised by the presence of these 4 teams in the semi-finals?
Not surprised at all. I mean, big up to Laser Hill. They've been growing from strength to strength.
Yes.
Coming out of final in 7s, they lost to Maseno.
Unfortunately,
A very tight game.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised to see them there. I mean, they have been showing that growth. Again, Alliance, defending champions.
Yes.
So for them not to make it to the semi-final,
it would have been headlines.
yeah, it would have been headlines. Then you have Strathmore and you have Lenana. Lenana has been perennial challengers for the title, so I'm not surprised to see either Lenana or Strathmore there. I think I was a bit disappointed not to see Upper Hill. They had the size, they had the bulk. I think they lacked in the way they approached some games.
Because Laser Hill gave quite a lot in weight, but they managed to overcome them last week.
Yeah.
But then again, if you look at some of the teams that fell by the wayside, Patch, Nairobi School, they're not there. Ofafa Jericho, credit to them, they're in it and they're playing with the big boys, made it to the quarterfinals. Yeah. And for some reason, this season has been mad with all these interruptions. And everybody is saying that, we need to find the right balance between academics and the sport. But at the end of the day, Jotham, as you're saying earlier on, you cannot pay for your school fees just from sports.
Not yet. But then you see, if we look at our national 7th team and 15th team, we're making great strides into trying to make it somewhat semi-professional. But that major platform needs an avenue to be fed into. And that avenue, if we look at the bigger T nations out there, New Zealand, South Africa, just to use those two, and even England, they start feeding that platform from high school. So you have kids in academy, and there's a very good, healthy balance between the education system and the sports facility. So because, God forbid, you get signed up, you get a scholarship, and your first season or in trial basis, you get injured, a career-ending injury. What do you have to fall back to?
True.
So we're not saying that we should ignore the academic sector, but also a healthy balance so that we have those players who may not be really skilled or have passion for classroom aspects, but on the field, they're basically a terror. Someone like me,
I don't know how much Jotham qualifies to play international rugby.
I qualify very
No,
well.
I don't think you do. But anyway, when you come back after the break, we're going to be focusing on a player who actually qualified to play the 7s and the 15s for the national team, and right now is playing pro rugby in France. We're going for a short break. Remember, you can get in touch with us on Facebook. That is Scrum Down. We'd love to hear from you. Also on Twitter, @Scrum Down Rugby. Keep the comments coming in. We'd love to engage you in this show, Scrum Down. We're going for a short break. When you come back, Willy Ambaka.
It is almost 1 year since Kenya Sevens winger William Ambaka left the country to ply his trade in France. Ambaka headed home to visit his family after playing professional rugby in France. He was born and raised in Kitengela, in the outskirts of the capital city Nairobi. Ambaka was one of the standout players for the national rugby sevens team last season, and just like most players in the country, he took an interest in the sport while in high school.
Yeah, I used to play soccer till the age of 15. Then when we moved to Nairobi, that's when I came to know of rugby, because in my childhood days, I never knew about rugby. So my friend Brian Amino was the one who told me, why are you playing soccer? So that's when I went with him to the training grounds at Cardovillis, mini rugby, and I came to find out the game is really good.
In 2009, Ambaka joined Kenya Harlequins, one of Kenya's top rugby clubs. His hard, powerful running and tenacity on attack earned him the nickname Lomu, in honor of the New Zealand All Blacks legend.
It feels good because Lomu is a legend. But honestly, from where the nickname came from, I don't know. I just woke up one day and found people calling me Lomu, which was pretty scary, I think. Yeah, but it was at the same time amazing. He's big, fast. I'm fast too, but not as he is, yeah.
Ambaka's form grew tremendously and he earned a call-up into the National Rugby Sevens team in 2011. He was even selected into the IRB Sevens Dream Team last year after his impressive performance on the pitch. The award is one of many that has a special corner at the family home.
This is my trophy cabinet. And my favorite trophies are actually this one, the first favorite trophy, being the most valuable player in the 2012 Safaricom Sevens.
Nice. An Australian agent who had been following Ambaka's exploits on the pitch contacted him on social media and gave Willy, as he is fondly known to his peers, an offer he could not resist.
At first, I came to know about France when somebody from Australia called Damien contacted me on Facebook. Actually, he was like, "How do you feel about playing professional rugby?" And I told him, "Yeah, I'm interested." And then that's how he introduced me to the current coach of Blue Rugby, called Tim Len.
It was easier said than done. The trip to France was challenging and he arrived in Lyon a month to the start of the new season. Communication was one of his biggest obstacles.
Most of the team, my teammates speak French. We are like a handful of guys who speak English, and some of the French guys who speak English, you can't understand what they're really saying. So we had to go to a French class.
Ambaka slowly found his stride and he was able to transition seamlessly into the new setup, scoring 8 tries in 9 games. A back injury mid-season slowed down his momentum, but he bounced back to play a key role in Lyon's promotion in the French Premiership League, the top 14. Ambaka's skills that were sharpened in France are what the Kenya 15's technical bench will be banking on for the World Cup qualifiers. Ambaka's mother is also happy her son is back after being overseas for close to a year.
Yeah, it wasn't very easy for me because I wanted Willy to concentrate on his studies, and then looking at rugby, the way that game is played, it's a very rough game. Yeah, so at first I was not very happy, but I came to understand the game and get to accept that he has to play the game because it's like it is his talent.
Preparation for the World Cup qualifiers included a game against the Western Province of South Africa, a game that provided the passionate Kenya rugby fans with an opportunity to watch the diamond in the rough that is Willy Ambaka. At only 24, the best is yet to come.
So, I mean, one thing that is made very clear is the fact that his diet has to change. I mean, he had to change his training regime for him to be able to play at that top-notch level of rugby. I mean, do you guys feel that maybe we need to translate that into the local 7 circuit, for instance, or the local players also need to adapt to that? Because that's the first thing he did. When he went to France, he had to change his diet, okay? He had to change his training regime. What are we doing wrong?
I think it's just the whole structure. No matter how committed you are as a player to probably, have your own private routine or private diet, there's a lot of outside influence. I think that's something even you as a coach can testify to. There are a lot of outside influences that can either push you towards really achieving it or not. I mean, for example, we have him I think it's safe to say he's a professional player right now. If we look at, once again, other developing nations, players normally have a structure, a shelter structure where they know how to deal with the outside world. We have, proper agencies and systems that enable them to be ready for this psychological. And it's purely business also.
True.
But then here on the other hand, we have the famous term kayumbet. That normally happens,
Kayumbet is all about partying and after the game you go out and enjoy yourself. But just another thing to bring it out, with regards to managing yourself as a player, with regards to issues of developing the sport here in the country, Kenya Rugby Union, they've been having this relationship with South Africa. Okay, it's good. We play down there. Right now, should we be looking at France as another rugby partner? Because we've had quite a number of players go down there to play in the leagues there, Johnny. Do you think we need to expand it from?
Biggest thing is this. I'll always say this. If something is a business, the more you invest on it, the more return you expect. I'll give you an example. In Kenya right now, we have our Kenya Cup, which doesn't have any incentive to win, apart from bragging rights.
For the whole year, yes.
If the reason top 14 has so many players going there right now is because there's so much in terms of incentive. Now, when you have teams wanting to get as much incentive in terms of TV rights, in terms of sponsorship, in terms of prize money, they will invest as much as possible. That even means your training regime will go up.
Yes.
Now, when your training regime goes up, that means you have stronger opposition, which means you have to
Up your game.
up your preparation, and that's all it's about. In Kenya, there is the fact that it's not as lucrative as other areas whereby you'll have people investing as much as possible so that they can be winners. People will relax and say, hey, we have a game on Saturday, but the opposition is not as tough as going to play, let's say.
So you become a bit lax.
So guys become a bit lax. I mean, I as a coach know that if I want to win a game, there's a ceiling I can reach that I'll be comfortable with if I was playing a local game, as opposed to at international level, the stakes are much higher because people are better prepared. So I think the union just should look at a way of adding more incentive. I'll give you an example. Last month we went to Kitui. Very small prize money, 500,000. People came together, put different teams out there, and the incentive was 500,000. But you would see the kind of preparation that went to winning that 500,000 was immense. We can't compare with what other people would do to go and play a local circuit.
Yeah.
So for me, I think if the incentive is right, you'll have better preparation and you'll have high quality competition coming in there.
Now, moving on to rugby legends. This is where we appreciate all the efforts and all the conviction that has been put by some of the rugby players in Kenya. We are going to be focusing on a guy who is actually a Kenya Harlequin stalwart. And Jotham is smiling here.
Oh, this is a very good show. This week's episode is very good.
He is. He's played his rugby for the 7th team, for the 15th team, went down to Australia, trained there for a couple of years, came back. And this guy, I mean, he's a critic for the game, but just because he loves it. This is Cardo.
My name is Charles Cardovillis. Currently, I'm a project consultant at Cisco Systems for a telehealth project. And I'm obviously a big rugby enthusiast, former head coach of Kenya Harlequins.
Charles Cardovillis is among the first generation of players that played for the national sevens team between 1999 and 2005.
Actually, the 15th team got priority. So when selections was done and you were called to the 15s, we actually had to pull out of the sevens team. And because the sevens at that time only had 3 tournaments, it wasn't really big. It was just invitational. We used to go to South Africa, Dubai, and Hong Kong. And a lot of the games we were playing at the 15s level was either against our big rivals, Uganda, or World Cup qualifiers.
The Cardovillis family was not such a big rugby family before Charles started playing. His uncles played for St. Mary's School in the late 60s. Charles picked up the cue when he also joined St. Mary's School. He actually took up triathlon as a sport until he was thrown a challenge because of his big size.
And said, you're such a big boy, you're scared to play rugby and whatever, and that got me onto the rugby field. And from then, I never sort of turned back. And the family just supported me.
Supportive parents and the links between Kenya Harlequins and St. Mary's School naturally influenced Cardovillis' decision to join Kenya Harlequins in 1995 while still in high school. 2 years of second team action and he was elevated into the first team.
So I was the young kid sitting on the bench, watching all my other friends play in the second team, that I'm here sitting on the first team bench and not actually playing. So it got a little frustrating. And I made a decision. And the decision to move to Nondis was pretty simple because Nondis had then moved out of Parkland Sports Club and their home was now St. Mary's. So in 1998, I moved to Nondis.
Charles says this was one of the greatest years of his life as he attracted all the good stories in the press. He was the St. Mary's School captain and he was playing for Nondis RFC. A good season culminated in Nondis winning the Kenya Cup, the Enterprise Cup, and he got his first call up to the Kenya team.
That year alone sort of eclipsed nearly everything in my playing years. And it was really, really enjoyable. And just because of the success in that year, I guess that was my finest sort of time in rugby.
Cardovillis says he loved the Super Series rugby tournament and his reason is simple.
It was 4 teams, Kenya's best 100 players, banging each other week in, week out for 4 weeks, and an ultimate winner. When you won that tournament, you know you had done everything you had to do.
His best was in 2005, playing for the Buffaloes franchise, a combination of Nondi's RFC and the now defunct Ulinzi RFC. He captained the team that had difficulties in matching up. They played totally contrasting styles of rugby. Never mind, they both had moved to the Nairobi showground as their base. The effect, an uproar caused by a selection stalemate.
Ulinzi were on fire because I remember for the sort of final, I think it was the final selection, they only had 3 players in the team. And I think two of them were starting, the other was on the bench. So they had Dennis Mwanja, Paul Murunga. And so it was a big thing, it almost became nasty. But it was quelled, and the important thing is that we won.
Many players never have enough of the game. They would wish to play until the body can take no more. This is exactly what happened to Cardovillis. An incident in a Kenya Cup match made him realize he had reached the end of the rope.
Ian Simiyu had the ball, he was playing for Queens then, put me in the finest gap I'd ever seen. And I broke and I was through and I was all loose. As in, this is when you've actually clenched your muscles, you're through the gap, and now you know you're through, and you open and you're like Free Willy, and pop, I get hit from behind, one of the hardest tackles, and I land on my shoulder, and the shoulder pops. And it was one dear Humphrey Kayangi who had done that. So tried to get up, and of course I couldn't, the shoulder was out. So I walked off, very disappointed. I've rarely never finished a game. I've never really been injured in my whole career, and I'm like, wow. So I sat there, refused to go to hospital.
Part of giving back to the community is a project of satellite tournaments that Charles is involved in. Many a times they are perceived as competing tournaments with the mother union, the Kenya Rugby Football Union.
We are not trying to fight the union or counter what the union is doing. We are helping them sort of grow the sport. And eventually we must work together.
Charles Cardovillis is an example of what structured development in the sport can produce over a long period of time. The rugby journey for him never ends. It only takes a different route with the passing of time.
My daddy and mommy, the engine behind me, asanteni sana, my biggest fans.
Welcome back to Scrum Down. That was Cardovillis, a true legend. Just remind you once again, you can engage us on Twitter at Scrum Down Rugby. We are also on Facebook, Scrum Down. We'd love to hear all your comments. Johnny, I know you played against Cardo. I know Jotham has just watched Cardo from the stands. You've never played against him.
No, I've been coached by him.
You've been coached by him?
I've been coached by him.
Just one thing as a coach. I mean, what can you say about Cardo as a coach?
I think he knows how to get you mentally into the right place. He makes you understand why you have to do what you have to do, why you're going through. Training session is normally painful.
Yes.
But he gives you a goal, a target to work with. It makes you, like we've just talked about incentives in terms of if we had a higher incentive in the Kenya Cup, would actually improve the morale of the game or the nature of the game. And the same thing when it comes to training. He breaks it down, he tells you, this is why you're doing this number of sprints. This is why you're doing A, B, C, D. It's going to hurt. It makes you understand why. It's going to hurt now, but here's the reward I'll give you at the end of it all. So everybody has something to strive for, and that's the psychological aspect that makes the body function.
Johnny, two words about Cardo.
Cardo, I think he'll kill me for this, but I think he has a few bruises with my name on him.
This is the bragging part. Okay, fine.
But anyway, good opponent on the pitch. Played against him on numerous occasions when he played center. And I think he also played at the wing and at fullback. As a coach, also, I'll give him props. I mean, he's a very good coach. Worked with him at the national team. And right now, I'm very pleased and proud of what he's doing, trying to bring those incentives to talk about in different tournaments. And I think rugby can only be good with him in it.
We're on the right path with rugby.
Yes.
And also, not to forget, he's a mean chef. He's a very good chef.
Yeah.
He's a very good chef. Well, that's all we have time for this week on Scrum Down. We're going to be leaving you with the Scrum Down fact of the week. Despite all the garb we receive about Nairobi School, They haven't won Prescott Cup as many times as most would make you believe. The first time they won it actually was in 2002, and then they had another 5-year break. He came back in 2007. So, Edward Rombo, I think I've said it right. And I know he's going to be fighting me for this. Anyway, that's all we have time for this week on Scrum Down. Join us again next week on another edition of Scrum Down. Go out and support some rugby. Go out and enjoy the sport. We'll see you next week.